You're listening to Packers Talk Network.
Do you want to experience the thrill of a Packers game at Lambeau Field? If so, be sure to get your game tickets from the longtime trusted source in Wisconsin, Ticket King. Visit their locations in Milwaukee and Green Bay, or just go to their website, theticketking.com. Again, that's theticketking.com.
Or is this like coin toss, Twitter questions, vamoose?
Well, it could be quick. I mean, it doesn't need to be. This should be a shorter podcast, probably. But,
there's Jordan trying to tell us how to run our lives again.
Jordan, you misunderstood. When I asked a question to the group, it was to everybody but you.
I was thinking about like a nice 2-hour podcast to really like let us get all of our wiggles, release our wiggles. I don't know what
that means. I don't.
Just go from there. You know how we all have wiggles, and we have to release them at times.
Are you coming on to me?
And that's what I'm talking about.
No, I think John's coming on to all of us. I think he's...
No, I'm talking about...
I'm married. I'm married,
about
John.
The wiggles. But you still have to release your wiggles when things don't go your way.
Who's the bigger issue? Who gets more blame? And then we can use his to talk about...
He got his wiggles out. John just got his wiggles out.
Just said to release my wiggles.
I quit. The show is your guys' now. I'm done.
Take New York Bozo! New York Bozo! New York Bozo!
I got to get my biceps a little bigger.
Yeah, you can always work on that.
Well, could you use a hot dog with chili?
You know what time the game starts? Hey, you got any left-handed footballs? We need to fire him. Is anybody else tired, or is it just me? Good thing I'm in shape. You got any eligibility left? I got some advice for y'all. Take 2 weeks off, then quit.
Good evening, Packer Nation. Welcome back to another edition of Fire Dom Capers Pack to the Future podcast. I am your host, John Jameson. Man, I'm going to tell you guys how I'm feeling right off the bat. I mean, obviously the Packers just got knocked out of the playoffs, and that's never an easy pill to swallow. But man, they resurrected their season, and they gave us hope, and that's all they really could do. And I mean, they ran the table like Rodgers said. And they just brought some super solid football, and watching Rodgers play that last half of the season, I was watching a quarterback play the quarterback position in a way that I have never seen played before.
Never.
That dude was purely dominant, and he is a master craft at his position, and we all need to pray and thank God every single day that we have number 12 as a Green Bay Packer. And with that, Brian Fonfera, how are you doing tonight, buddy?
I'm doing pretty good. I mean, John, you said it. Like, this season was a success, especially given where we were halfway through it. It was a devastating performance on Sunday, but at the risk of you guys hating me more, it was a lot easier of a pill to swallow for me since I was in Aruba. It was really easy to get over.
Aruba.
Did I ever mention that I went to Aruba this weekend?
Oh, I want to date you.
Brian,
I think I want to date you. I think I want to date you now.
Let's date all the way to Kokomo.
Let's go to Kokomo and date. Let's date in Kokomo.
Who cares if it's not a real place?
It's in Indiana.
Can I say that?
You can. Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Dusty, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing all right, man.
Hey.
I broke out the fancy bourbon for tonight, special occasion. The Packer season, sadly done, but yeah, like Brian. I mean, it's kind of heartbreaking. Those blowout losses are always a little easier to take than the close ones. I was very easily able to go back and look at what Rodgers had done. Like you said, some of the throws he's made, some of just the insane moments he gave us through that running the table. I was looking through a lot of those plays today and found the one like the one to Devontae Adams in the back of the end zone against the Eagles, which kicked off the winning streak that just went through a receiver basically.
My
just
gosh.
Bonkers, man. Like just some insane throws, that diving throw to the sideline to Cobb against the Cowboys. Like it's never easy to lose a game like that, but man, it's, I'm doing all right. I'm excited to be here with you guys. It was a fun ride while it lasted for sure.
Like, let me ask that question right now. Like, Rodgers had 2 throws like that this season. There was the one to Devontae against the Eagles, and then he had the one to Richard Rodgers against the Cowboys.
Yeah, over Sean Lee
defending. And it's like, is he actually like that accurate that he can just make that work? Like,
yes.
Yes. And that is the answer. That is the answer. It blows our minds what this guy can do.
The Lee one, I think, was a bit of luck. The Eagles one was just, we've seen him just
perfect
throw balls right by guys' ear holes, like on a regular basis. The Eagles one was pure skill. Like the Cowboys one, he had a free play, he's chucking it up there. That was kind of luck, but man, still, those plays were both insane. Like ridiculous. He's given us a lot of plays just in like the past 8 games that were just bonkers.
And on both of those plays, I saw a lot of people on Twitter saying that those were horrible throws. I'm like, look, maybe the Eagles one was a little bit ill-advised, and it could have been picked, but to call it horrible, that ball was on a dime. And then the Sean Lee one, I'm like, that was a free play.
It's a free play that he just wanted to make a play on. Yeah.
Oh, people. Yeah. People are the worst.
People are terrible. I have also noticed this.
Both those throws were Dilfer dimes, guys. Let's be honest about that, okay?
We told you, John, don't ever bring that name up on this podcast. You've been warned. We've talked about this.
Can at least talk about Joey Harrington to make Dusty happy.
Yes, please. Let's do it, man. That's an off-season podcast right there.
Dusty, we try to bring up elite. We try to bring up elite quarterbacks as much as possible. So we get
that's Joey Harrington, Tim Couch. You know how I do.
I was talking about Dilfer, but if you guys want to talk about those guys.
and guys, that voice you just heard is the guy that we never want to announce on the show, and his name is Jordan Peck. And Jordan,
you never want to.
For the love of all that is good, how are you freaking doing tonight?
You never want to announce it, but you always have to.
Always have to.
I have to.
It's like going to the dentist.
I hate contract obligations. I hate contract obligations.
Talking to and about Jordan is like going to the dentist.
Well, I was.
It's a life necessity.
I was doing well, but now I'm not doing so well. Thanks, guys.
Anytime, buddy.
That is a lie. You are always one thing I know about Jordan is that he is always doing well.
This is true.
And it is. And that's why we love you, and that's why you're such a key part of the show. So, Jordan, thank you for showing up tonight. Why don't you go ahead and I'm going to hand over my reins of the coin toss, but before I do that, I'm going to tell you guys about something very, very special, an opportunity that you guys can do, okay? And that is you need to, not you have the option to, but you need to subscribe to our podcast in iTunes and in Stitcher. You can find it on our website, but it makes it a lot easier if you go to iTunes or Stitcher, search out Back to the Future Podcast, subscribe to our channel on there, and while you're there, I am just asking a small favor that maybe you guys go ahead and rate us and give us an honest rating of 5. And just take a little bit of time to rate us, and we would really, really appreciate that. And with that, I'm going to hand the reins over to Jordan, and Jordan is going to take the coin toss segment away from me. Go ahead, Jordan.
Thank you, John. It's an honor to finally be at the reins and be the judge of you guys and your knowledge of football issues. I'm honored. All right. Dusty and John, you both won the coin toss. Congratulations.
All right. I'm just gonna sit back and listen now. There's no point in me saying
thank my mama and Elvis.
Jordan,
thank you, everybody.
Doesn't it feel good? Doesn't it feel good?
It's a lot of power, and it does feel good. All right.
It's the most power that Jordan has ever been able to wield before.
All right. First coin toss, guys. Let's get serious here. This is between Dusty and John. The question is,
Dun, dun, dun.
do you think Aaron Rodgers' comments that he made in his end of season press conference, talking about going all in the future or this upcoming season, are they a reflection of the front office, or is he trying to send a message to the front office? So, Dusty, I'm going to flip this coin. If it's heads, you're going to tell me that it's a reflection of the front office. If it's tails, you're going to say he's trying to send a message. It is tails. Dusty, Aaron Rodgers is trying to send a message.
Yeah, I mean, I do think he's trying to send a message. Well, I think his actual comments, someone asked him if the Packers need to rebuild, which, first of all, is a ridiculous question to ask because they just made the NFC Championship game. And Rodgers' response was, we don't need to rebuild, we need to reload. And I mean, that's, there's only one way to take that. You don't really refer to drafting as reloading. And so I don't think they had any time to talk about this. I don't think this was any kind of conferring with the front office. I think this was Rodgers saying we need to reload. We saw what a difference Jared Cook made this year when he was healthy. That was just like a free agent signing that at the time I know I was against and a handful of people were against. They are so close. I think Rodgers sees, 33, 34 now?
I think that's right.
I think he sees he doesn't have a whole lot of he's got a lot of great football in front of him, but his prime is closing. That window to win a Super Bowl with the talent they have, and just with him playing at the level he's playing, which he has to do to get the Packers where they need to be, I think he sees that window closing, and that can't be done in the draft. So I think this is a message, basically telling the front office, we need to sign some impact free agents. Again, you saw Cook. There's guys out there they can sign. And I think Rodgers sees that, and he also sees what they had to do just to get to the playoffs this year. I don't think there's anything having to do with the front office. I think that this was Rodgers saying, "Listen, guys, you need to help me out." I think that's it. I really think that's it.
All right, John, is Aaron Rodgers just reflecting what the front office is already thinking?
I mean, it is very, very hard for me to argue the points that Dusty just made. I think that. It's possible that Rodgers is making a cry for help to the front office. But in my defense, I do think he was just making, he was just reflecting on where the season has taken him. And, the front office, you could argue that they did their part in signing Jared Cook and just kind of giving him another weapon. I mean, you can't bank on Richard Rodgers, being a tight end that's going to perform week in and week out. And the front office gave Rodgers Jared Cook, and he's got several weapons. I mean, you look at Randall Cobb, you look at Jordy Nelson and Devontae Adams, even like a youngster like Trevor Davis. Like, what we saw from him was very, very good. And I mean, he could just be in the moment and saying something. If anything, I know Dusty kind of stuck to the offensive side. If anything, he's making a cry for help on the defensive side of the ball with our secondary being as lousy as it is. But I really just want to say that he was just kind of reflecting on where the season took him.
All right. Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, it's a tough thing to argue, and I think the reason it is we're all kind of have that bias. That the team obviously needs to improve in certain aspects. I don't think he's making the call for offensive help as much. I think we're probably okay in that regard. So because of that, I'm going to give it to Dusty. I think he did a little bit better job arguing the point, but it is a tough argument to make. I mean, we've all seen the needs that particularly on the defensive end. I have a feeling that's probably what Rodgers is talking about. Rodgers wants to win a ring. He wants our team to get better. We need to get to the Super Bowl. So I think he is trying to send a message. So Dusty, I'm going to give you the point there. That was good though. It was good from you guys.
Thank you for acknowledging the fact that it was tough for me to argue.
You're
that,
welcome.
Jordan.
Yeah, but you're right, John. I mean, he does have weapons, and there are a lot of defensive free agents. I do think I kind of have a tendency to think reload on offense, but yeah, I mean, defense is a way bigger priority, and there are guys there. You can load up on defense a little bit in this free agency. So I don't know. I hope they do.
We have money to be spent. Money to be spent.
Yeah.
All right.
Sure.
We are on to the second coin toss question. This is going to be between Brian and Dusty. Fonfara versus Evely. All right. Guys, just today, there was an NFL.com article by Chris Wesseling that talked about the Packers potentially being aggressive in free agency. So the question for you guys is, will the Packers keep doing what they've been doing in recent off seasons, or will they actually make a splash and go get that big name this off season? So Brian, if it is heads,
Sir.
If it is heads, you're going to argue that the Packers keep doing what they're doing. And if it's tails, you're going to say that they are going to make a splash this offseason. And it is tails again. So, Brian, you believe that the Packers are going to make a splash in free agency this offseason.
Oh, boy. Let me start off by pointing out, for John's sake, that Jordan just effortlessly pulled off pronouncing Evely, which is
that was
actually a really easy last name to pronounce, but John has crazy struggles with, and nobody really understands why.
Didn't even think twice about it. Yeah, I don't know.
Oh boy. All right. So the Packers are going to make a splash. I'm going to believe this for two reasons. One, there's a lot of quotes from Ian Rapoport in there. I trust Ian Rapoport. He doesn't get everything right, but I think he's got a lot of really good sources. I respect the guy. I think he's really good at what he does, and I think he's got the story right more often than not. So I'm going to go ahead and trust his sources. The other thing is, they really don't have a choice. Like it was mentioned earlier, Ted Thompson is nearing 70 years old. Aaron Rodgers is nearing his mid-30s. Dom Capers is about to turn 174 next week. They have to go all in here. They don't have a choice. So yeah, that's the reason I'm going to believe that they'll make a splash. It's because the alternative is another playoff win or two next year, falling short of another Super Bowl, and them having to answer all these awkward questions again. And, maybe that splash will work, maybe it won't, but at least then you can say they really gave it their all for this year. And you can't really say that for all of the last 5 years. So, yes, I think they're going to make a splash. They are going to go all in.
Brian, are you saying that we're going to have a special Dom Capers birthday podcast next week?
Oh, we'll have a special Dom birthday podcast next week. It'll be special, all right.
All right. Dusty, you have the other side of this. You are arguing that the Packers are going to keep doing what they have been doing in recent off seasons.
Man, so I'm looking at the free agent list right now, and I'm kind of going up against Packers' needs. So listen, we need a pass rusher, right? We got Calais Campbell. You got Chandler Jones, undrafted free agent. You need some help in the secondary. We got AJ Bouye, who had a dynamite season out of Houston, undrafted free agent. So we got K'Wan Short. You've got Justin Durant, inside linebacker. You've got a whole lot of people that can help us. And I'm looking at this list, and when I was making it, I just got sad because I know we're not going to sign any of those people. Just not a single one. Because
we're signing AJ Bouye.
I mean, I'd be happy with that, but it's not going to happen. It's the same thing that happens every year. You know the big sighting of Ted Thompson this year? I don't know if you guys saw this just a couple days ago. He's at the Senior Bowl. He lives for that. He's going to sign some undrafted free agent out of Northern Delaware State Technical College or something. And he's going to be super, super excited about it.
They had a great season. They had a great season this year.
They you know what? Yeah, man, just 7-5, that's just great for them. It's the same thing every year, and that's part of what being a Packers fan with Ted Thompson is. That you know what you're going to get. You can get your hopes up. You can look at the guys that they have in free agency. You can look and say, oh, these guys are going to plug these holes. And even if it's not the big name guys, I don't really love spending big money on big name free agents because that can often backfire. But you just look at the list and some of these guys, you're like, you know what, they get that guy for 1 or 2 year deal, maybe low money, bolster depth. You get a guy in there. I mean, we've talked a lot of people have talked a lot about Capers, and his scheme. You just kind of need veterans. You need guys who have seen a lot. You need guys that can kind of fall into what he does. And so you think this one guy could make a difference, man. Just this one guy. I think Terence Newman is an undrafted free agent this year. I'm not a huge fan of his, but he could fit really, really well as like the veteran in a Dom Capers defense. And it's like, I'm kind of done getting worked up over it because like maybe once every 3 years they're going to sign a guy that's a splashy guy, but like they're not going to do that. They're not going to change who they are. Ted Thompson's not suddenly going to go out there and sign like 3 big name free agents and make a big splash. That's not who they are. That's not who he is. That's not historically who they think he's going to be. So we can look at this. Maybe he'll sign a guy. I kind of doubt it. Like it's going to be just business as usual, man. We're going to grab some draft picks. We're going to hope they work out. Rodgers is going to take us to the playoffs, and then we're going to lose because we don't have depth or we don't have veteran leaders. I mean, it's the same thing every year, and part of me loves it, and part of me hates it. But there's nothing to suggest that this year is going to be the year where it's going to turn around.
All right. That was really good. This is a tough decision for me. I tend to agree. I think both of you would probably agree that we're not going out and getting 3 of these dudes. But
No.
I think always back to the Julius Peppers signing and how surprised I was when that happened. I believe that happened right after the 2013-2014 season, which would have been the year after we went 8-7-1, and that was when Rodgers was hurt. So, I mean, you talk about a season where you could have just blamed everything on Rodgers being out, and they still went and got Julius Peppers. So I tend to think this would be the year that he'd actually go make a splash. I tend to agree with Brian here. So I'm gonna give the point to Brian. Very well argued points. I could see either situation happening, obviously. But I do think this is the year they actually do something. I think they're gonna let some guys go. I think they're gonna add a free agent. I agree with Brian. So that was good though. That was fantastic, guys. All right.
Thank you.
Last one, and easily the least important one. Before the podcast, everybody listening, we were kind of just going through what we were going to be talking about for the coin toss, and we got into I shouldn't say we. It was more John and company that got into a very, very heated discussion about who they'd rather have on the team, Antonio Brown or Jordy Nelson, and. John, I'm going to let you take this away. You have very strong beliefs on this, so I'm going to let you take this, John. I'm going to let you start. Why do you want Jordy Nelson more than Antonio Brown?
I am very, very, very heated right now about this. Okay,
so hot.
Let me start off by saying this. Number 1, Jordy Nelson is tried and true, thoroughbred, a Green Bay Packer, all right? The way that he walks, the way that he talks, what he does in the off-season makes him a Green Bay Packer. Not only does he shine on the field as a contributor, as a leader, and as a teammate, he is what personifies what makes a Green Bay Packer. Now look at Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown gives 2 craps about what Mike Tomlin, his head coach, is saying in the locker room. He just wants to look pretty in front of his cell phone and Facebook Live to all of his crew out there, being like, bam, look at me. We just won in Kansas City. Big whoop, all right? That type of personality does not belong on the Green Bay Packers. The Packers have had 0 flamboyant Packers in their history. Name one Packer that just goes out and talks a ton of crap to the media. Name one player that just does very questionable off-field activities. You don't
Max
find
McGee,
that.
Brett Favre.
Oh,
Andre Rison.
is it my turn yet?
Stop naming people. Stop naming
Is it
people.
my turn yet?
Stop
You told me to name
naming
names.
people.
You told me to name names.
Brett Favre stood in front of a podium, okay? He stood in front of a podium, on a podium, in front of many, many people, all right? And announced his addiction to something. Name a player in the NFL that would be like, all right, I'm addicted to marijuana. Here I am. I'm gonna take a year off and figure this out. No one would do that. Brett Favre is a Green Bay Packer. Jordy Nelson is a Green Bay Packer. Brian, take it away.
It's finally my turn.
Take it away.
Okay. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that may have seemed like the ramblings of a lunatic, but do not adjust your radio dial. It only sounded that way because it was the ramblings of a lunatic. I mean, John, we could go on
That's
and
false.
on. Javon
That's
Walker.
false.
Javon Walker. Mike McKenzie.
Gone. Not a Packer.
Yeah, but they were. You said none in their history. I mean, they're not even in the NFL anymore.
Guess
so.
what? Guess what? We
Okay,
didn't.
nope,
we didn't
it's
wanna
my
pay for
turn.
that. We didn't want
It's
to
my
pay for
turn.
that attitude.
It's my turn. It's my turn.
I feel like Stephen A. Smith right now.
No.
I feel like Stephen A. Smith
Yeah,
right
you
now.
should, because you're talking a whole lot of crap, and none of it makes any sense. That's why you feel like
It makes
Stephen
all-
A. Smith.
it makes- it
Okay,
makes- it makes all
first
the
of all,
sense.
I don't give two craps about a Facebook Live video. I really don't. Man, Antonio Brown with Aaron Rodgers at quarterback in a Mike McCarthy offense where he loves to throw a deep ball, he would probably get 2,000 yards receiving and 15 touchdowns. It'd be like Randy Moss playing with Tom Brady that year. Okay, that would just cement this as the league's best offense possibly ever. And we'd go back to like the 2011 season where Rodgers was just throwing up numbers for fun and nobody could stop him no matter what he wanted to do. Okay, now let's talk Packer people. Packer people is a myth. They just had to cut a guy because he had too many suspensions for substance abuse and things like that. You know, let's talk about LaTroy Guion, who had a court appearance for domestic violence, okay? Packer people is a myth, okay? If the Steelers came calling and said, give us Jordy Nelson and we'll give you Antonio Brown, you take that to the bank and you laugh the entire way there. I would trade our entire wide receiver core to get Antonio Brown and just start over behind him, and I wouldn't even bat an eye.
Ooh.
What if they're the same age?
They're not, though.
What if they
Man.
were?
I don't know what he's going to be like at Jordy. So if we go back to when Jordy was that age, I still take Antonio Brown.
Jordy Nelson is a farmer.
Okay, nope, you win.
A
There you go.
farmer!
He's a farmer. Jeez.
He has a cereal. He has farm.
Jordan,
Can
I
you just
have
call
a
me the
point.
winner here so we can move?
John does bring
I
up a
have
good
a
point.
point.
Does Antonio
Jordy
Brown go
Nelson
back to his
is a
family
farmer.
farm? He doesn't.
Yeah,
No.
that's a good point.
No.
I like Antonio
Jordy,
Brown
give
because
me
he's
that
probably never
win.
been on a farm.
Give me that win and sleep easy
I will
tonight.
sleep easy no matter what, and I'm gonna give it. I'm gonna give the win to Brian. I do find it interesting. You would trade the entire receiving core and just have Antonio Brown and a bunch of scrubs.
How could someone so out of their mind win that coin toss and say something so ridiculous about trading
John,
the
are you
whole
okay?
receiving core?
John, is everything
John
okay
is
at
drinking
home?
a
Are you
16-ounce beer that is 11.3% alcohol by volume. That is
He's
where
probably
all these
done with it by
ramblings
now.
came from.
No, but I really
Let's just be clear.
All right, that's
I
not
wanna-
all
I
true.
wanna address-
That's not all true.
It's completely.
I want to address the comment, Brian. You would trade Jordan. You would have Antonio Brown and a bunch of scrubs, and you would trade the entire receiving core for him.
I would probably trade our entire receiving core for him.
Probably. That's interesting. That's interesting.
I would do it. You can sign a couple
I
other
would like
just
to
like
address.
random free agents. I mean, that receiving core there is him and a bunch of average guys. You can get a few average guys, a couple mid-round draft picks where Ted
You've
finds
got
his
some
guys.
good receivers in Pittsburgh. I'm not ready to say the Pittsburgh receivers are scrubs. They got
I
some
didn't say
good
scrubs,
guys.
I said
No, I'm
average.
just saying, like, fill him with. I'm not unless you were talking about trading him for the Pittsburgh receiving core. I was just talking about like filling him with undrafted free agents, but
No, not
You've got,
undrafted.
like,
you
like
go
you-
through the rest of the offseason in a normal way. You spend a day 2 pick on a wide receiver. You sign a couple free agents and then a couple of undrafted free agents. I think you could fill in and improve the receiving core.
Also, listen, guys, if we're going to go through this thought experiment, you know who an undrafted free agent wide receiver is? Or not undrafted, unrestricted free agent is this year?
Who's that?
Friggin' Terrelle Pryor. Like, I would take Antonio Brown and Terrelle Pryor to start that off. Like, I'd be very
There you
excited
go.
about that.
There you go.
would we take Terrelle Pryor over any of our actually contributing receivers right now?
Oh, absolutely not, but I
No.
think he'd complement Brown well.
Yeah. I wouldn't take him over, definitely not over Jordy, not over Adams.
Not over Cobb.
Not
I wouldn't take him
Not over
I'd-
Cobb. That wouldn't be the closest, but not over Cobb.
Yeah,
He'd if we were to sign him right now, he'd be our 4th receiver.
We have a receiver that can only run fly routes in Jeff Janis.
That's true.
the value in a Terrelle Pryor though is that we have a receiver and we have a third string quarterback all in once. All
We've already got that with Randall Cobb.
There you go.
Cobb played quarterback for a year at Kentucky.
Joe
like he is.
Callahan.
Are we really going to argue about
Joe
who the better college
Callahan.
quarterback was between Randall Cobb and Terrelle Pryor? I don't know. No,
I will.
No,
I mean,
will.
Next week's coin toss.
I mean, what I want to argue is Jordan's ability to judge these coin tosses. It's pretty ridiculous.
Is it rigged, John? Is it rigged?
Because I thought Dusty...
I'm going to use my 2 seconds of
I thought-
FaceTime
I
this
thought
week to tell
Dusty-
John to shut up.
Actually, Dusty won both of them.
I thought
so.
Dusty won that coin toss against Brian the last coin toss. I don't see Ted Thompson.
I also thought that.
I don't see Ted Thompson making any moves this offseason. With the names that Dusty laid out there, which are no.
Let me ask you this.
Well, too bad you weren't the judge.
Let me ask you this, guys. Though is I mean, who saw the Peppers signing coming? That came out of nowhere.
No, that's true.
That came out of nowhere.
Accurate.
So for him to go out and get one of these dudes would not shock me. It would be out of the norm,
right,
but
Jordan,
it shouldn't
you're
be
getting
shocking.
credibility.
But here's what we got to say. What would constitute a splash? Because that's what the question was. Are they going to make a splash? Now, going out and signing a couple Jared Cook quality players is not going out and making a splash. Going out and getting, for example, Stephon Gilmore to come in and be our number 1 cornerback, that would be a splash.
Yeah.
So,
but see, like if you signed Chandler Jones and AJ Bouye, like that's a splash.
the two of them
Gilmore-
together
is
could be a
Gilmore
splash.
Does
Gilmore's
anyone
the
see
dude
that
from the
happening?
Rams?
The Bills.
Yeah.
No, who's the Rams? Who's the Rams dude that's a free agent?
Do you know, is that
They're-
Jenkins? Is Jenkins?
No,
a free
Jenkins
agent?
was a free agent last year. And
Oh,
went to
he's
the
with
Giants.
Miami.
No.
Yeah.
Sorry, dude. That's I wish I had a name.
I feel like-
but
yeah.
the dude for the Rams is like, I think Pro Football Focus rated him like the 8th best cornerback in the league or something like that. I could be fudging numbers right there, but the dude is a top.
Well, just to
Seriously though, like he is a top cornerback and he's a free agent.
Well,
That Tremaine Johnson.
that's the
Yeah.
one. Tremaine
Sounds
Johnson. That's the one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to have him here.
considering
But yeah,
considering
we'll cover this more definitely when we get closer to free agency opening, and we'll do a special waste of an hour free agency special of Pack to the Future.
let's not. It won't be a waste once Ted goes all in. He's going all in. He's all in.
He's going to sign 15
He's
free
going.
agents.
He's cutting everybody.
It pains me to say that Brian has won the overall evening for coin tosses, but what it does not pain me
Dusty
to
went-
say
Dusty
is
went
that
2-0.
there is
No, you called me the winner of the second one.
Yeah, Dusty
Yeah,
lost
that's right.
the second
That's
one,
right, you
Jordan.
You named
I
me
was
champion.
just
Jordan.
plugging
Can't take
the
it back now.
sponsor.
I won't
guys.
take it back.
Holy cow, guys! There is a phenomenal sponsor that sponsored us every single week that us idiots have decided to podcast. Okay, thank goodness for Pride and Glory Clothing for sponsoring us idiots to do this every week. Jordan, what kind of products do they have right now?
What
Tell
kind of
us,
products do they
please.
have? It's a lot of the same stuff we've been talking about all season, guys. This is the time after we lose a horrible playoff game where we get blown out of the water. You know, it'd be like, oh, maybe I'm going to take off my Packer jersey, take off my Packer hat. No. This is not the time for that. This is the time to show your true colors, show that you are a diehard Packer fan through thick and thin. So check out Pride and Glory Clothing Company. Great t-shirts, sweatshirts, hats, wristbands. They got everything we need, especially for these summer months. Going into the off season. So check out prideandglory63.com. That's prideandglory63.com.
And ladies and gentlemen, because unfortunately there is no Packer game to be had this week or the next, we will be doing a special, call it what you will. It's just a question for our three intellects that we've had year in, year out, Brian, Dusty, Jordan, and they're going to discuss this question right here. The defense has seemed to just fail the Packers year in, year out. This year especially, with the secondary just falling apart. And I want to know from you guys, I'm going to start this off with Brian, whether you think this is because of a Dom Capers run defense or personnel that Ted Thompson has drafted. Go ahead, Brian.
All right, look, I sat down, and as we're recording this, it's Thursday night. After reading the comments and listening to the comments that Mike McCarthy made in his season-ending press conference, I got pretty worked up about, I'm not asking for both guys to be fired, but, there was no doubt about Ted coming back, and there's, strongly hinted that Dom Capers is coming back, so I got a little worked up, and I started to write. I started to write an article about Dom Capers failing, right? And I thought, you know what? A lot of this really can be put on Ted. And every time I mention Dom Capers on Twitter, somebody comes out and says, well, what about Ted Thompson? He deserves a lot of blame here. And what I realized while I was writing that article is that these two together, it just feels like a match made in hell. They have two completely different philosophies, right? So Ted Thompson believes draft and develop, draft and develop, draft and develop. And that's fine. That's a perfectly fine philosophy to have. And he also believes that you have your franchise quarterback, you do what you can to put a good offense around him because that's your strength. And that's also fine. But where it becomes not fine is when you have a defensive coordinator like Dom Capers. He relies on veteran influence. He relies on smart players that have been around the block that can run his complex schemes. And he does not have that right now. And again, when you have a GM that believes in building defense, Dom Capers can be a fit. But these two just have completely different views on how to build a football team. And it's made for moments like this where they're not on the same page. They don't, Dom doesn't have the players that he needs, but he's also not getting the most out of these players. And I wrote down some stats that really stood out to me. So I'm going to do my best Dusty impression here. Yay. This is going to be ugly.
Be more handsome. Be more handsome when you say it.
Okay. I really can't. I'm sorry. Okay. So looking at the regular season, right, I was actually really surprised by this. The Packers were tied for 6th in sacks. They were tied for the 6th most sacks on defense. Now, where that's a little misleading is there was no real pressure in between those sacks. They would go 4 straight drives with no pressure on a quarterback, and then one drive where they had 3 sacks in the same drive. Things like that happen all the time, so a little misleading. But then I also saw they are tied for 4th in interceptions. So what I'm seeing is that there is some talent on this defense, and it showed in stats like that. And where I see a lot of scheme issues, these two here, 29th in points allowed, and 31st in total tackles for the defense. Those are really bad. That's bad. Like, that shows you can't tackle. That shows guys are getting wide open, and that shows you can't keep people from getting into the end zone. That's just a lot of really bad scheming. Okay, so yeah, there was a lack of talent to a degree, but also we had some playmakers, and we couldn't find ways to get them to make plays consistently. Then there's the postseason, where they were really bad. They're dead last in yards allowed per game. They're third last on third down percentage allowed. The second most penalty yards against a defense goes to the Green Bay Packers. The most points allowed by far at this point. They allowed 88 points in those 3 games. The next worst was 64. And the only teams that had a higher points per game allowed were the teams that were knocked out in their first game and just allowed a whole bunch of points in those 1. So 3 games where you're allowing a whole lot of points. It's like that year after year. And it hasn't really mattered who's in there. So you can only put so much on Ted. And man, Dom is not making the best out of what he's got. He has shown that he's not capable of putting together a scheme that young players can handle. So biggest issue, I think, is these two being a terrible match for each other. But if I have to pick one, I'm putting it more on Dom Capers than I am Ted Thompson.
Dusty?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of in the same camp. I mean, to me, with Capers stuff, I was kind of looking at what he's done throughout his career as a defensive coordinator. And I mean, it's kind of cyclical, but it's also kind of tied to the players you have. And like Brian said, his scheme needs guys that know what they're doing, need guys who have seen certain things, need guys who can follow a game plan to the letter. And I mean, part of the problem with Capers, whether it's just, we were kind of joking before the show a little bit, but I think it's true. I mean, he's an older guy. He's been around a little bit. I think he's kind of at a point where he feels like he doesn't need to cater his scheme to the people, to the players. Yes, he just expects them to run it. It's kind of an issue when like Brian said, you're going off Ted Thompson, who does not necessarily believe in free agent signings. I mean, the best defensive season we had under Capers, he had Charles Woodson there. And Charles Woodson guys don't grow on trees. And he was a perfect fit for that defense.
Ryan
and you
Pickett,
had
Colin Jenkins.
I was going to say he had some veterans on that team. He had some young guys, but he also had some veterans. And so that's kind of what it's going to take, I think, for Capers to do this, is whether free agents or just guys in a system for a while. I mean, you look at after 2010, when they had, as just according to yards, I went with yards. In 2009, 2010, the Packers were 5th in the league with yards against. And in 2011, they jumped to 32nd. Worst in the league. And some of the guys they had on that team, I mean, they had Pickett, which was good. You had Raji in his second year. You had Matthews in his second year. You had Woodson. You had Hawk in his 5th. You had Trevon Williams. You had Charlie Peppera. You had Burnett as a rookie. It's like you had some guys that had been there for a little bit, but you also had some guys that had only been in there, say, a year or two. In 2012, they actually went down to 11th. So they jumped from 32nd to 11th in the league. And I mean, that was you just had guys in the system another year. You had Raji in there another year. You had Walden was still there. Matthews was there another year. Hawk was there another year. You had these guys who had, for lack of a better term, kind of grown up in the Capers defense. And just kind of, after some of those veterans left, it just kind of took them a little bit to kind of become the guys there, to kind of pick it up to where they could run it. Woodson was gone by 2012. But you had these guys that had been there for a couple of years. And that's kind of what I'm hoping is happening this next year. So this past year, they were 31st in the league in yards against, which is bad. I mean, you can get worse than that, but only by one spot. But again, in 2011, they jumped from 32nd to 11th, and in 2012. So you've got guys in the league that are just going to be in there another year. You've got Daniels, who we know is a monster. You've got Guyan, who's been with the team for a few years. But then in the secondary, you've got Jake Ryan took a huge step forward this year. Joe Thomas took a huge step forward this year. You're going to see, I think we're going to see that with Blake Martinez next year. You're going to see that with, Clinton Dix was his 3rd season? Was a monster this year. You've got guys who have now kind of grown up in the Caper system, where I think there maybe is some hope for next year, but it is an issue with these guys, because as long as Capers and Thompson are tied together, you're always going to kind of rely on every 3 to 4 years, these young guys hopefully getting up to speed, and they're not going to do that. So, I mean, with this, you have to supplement. If you're draft and develop, you have to at least supplement with some free agents, and they've shown they're not going to do that, which means Capers is always going to have a defense that is always, for every 3rd or 4th year, just god-awful, because he's not going to have the pieces there that have just been there long enough. It's a problem, and it's always going to be a problem. I have my issues with Ted Thompson, but he has talent there. I mean, I've seen, Demarius Randall is not great in zone, but he's one of their best man corners they've had in a very, very long time. Rollins has got some talent. Gunter showed he can do some stuff. Clinton Dix and Morgan Burnett, one of the best safety combos we've had in forever. Daniels is a monster. I talked about Jake Ryan and Joe Thomas. The talent is there, and it's on Capers to make it work. So, I mean, Thompson, say what you will about Thompson, he brings in guys, and he's been spending some picks on the defensive side. At this point, it's on Capers to make it work, and I mean, hopefully this next season we're going to see it work. But man, I mean, it's with these two guys, with how they work together, it's not good. We're always going to have these lapses, so there needs to be a fix in there. I think this next year we're going to see it, but there's always going to be, every 3rd year is going to be awful. So I put it more on Capers than Thompson for sure. That was long. I mean, Dusty, I apologize.
No, that's fine. Dusty, as the host, I mean, I feel it's my responsibility to give out the award for best intellect of the night, and you won it with the Charlie Pepper name drop.
Jordan hasn't even gone yet. He may have had Pepper lined up. I don't know, man.
He didn't.
But you said it first, and it's just
okay.
how the cookie crumbles when Jordan just always goes last in everything. So
there's a reason Dusty, we put him last in everything. It's so that we have to give him the fewest kudos.
But kudos on the Charlie Pepper name drop, and that was awesome. And Jordan, who is the blame on your end?
Oh man, hey, this is very, very good stuff from both of you guys. I'm not gonna lie, we haven't talked much about this as a group even before this show happened. It was good listening to what you guys had to say. This caused me to think a lot about just the situation in the past few minutes. You guys mentioned particularly about the age of these guys and kind of like the stuck in their ways mentality. I mean, you have Capers, who I think is 66. Ted Thompson is 64. And you think about the GMs that are successful in this league, most of them aren't in that age bracket. Defensive coordinators, not as much the case. You think of some of the really like legendary ones. They can get into their old age and still be effective. With the guys that he's had, you talk about the talent that we have with Capers and the way he's coaching. Mostly I got to put it on him, especially with the past few seasons, the way that it's gone. I mean, you talk about some guys that we have. Now, you mentioned, particularly this last season, Dusty, about Demarius Randall and Jake Ryan and these guys that have shown that they have talent. And I don't disagree, but everybody to a point shows that they have some bit of talent. It's whether it's sustainable. Even Jake Ryan, I mean, he played better than he did his rookie season. Is that going to be sustained? We have no idea. And that's the thing. You look back at even a few years ago with some of the players that we had, and you're like, oh, this defense, we're close. Even the year we went 12-4, went all the way to the NFC Championship and blew the lead against the Seahawks. We had a good enough defense to win a Super Bowl that year. This year we didn't. And you got to wonder how that's the case. For McCarthy in his press conference to go ahead and talk about injuries and injuries being the issue, I think is a cheap cop-out. Totally. It's a cop-out. I mean, you look at the starting 11, week 1, I believe only one of those guys was out for this NFC Championship game, and that was Shields. Now, I'm not discounting the importance of Shields to our secondary. Obviously, that's a big loss. But we had 10 of 11 guys, a couple guys that we're spending a lot of money on, and you got to get more out of these dudes. I mean, you just have to. So, and really, when I say that, I'm preaching more to Capers, truthfully. I mean, this guy's been around so long, you got to figure a guy can do more with the defense that he has. These are high draft picks. I mean, Ted's shown the focus on defense in the past few drafts. I can't even remember the last offensive first rounder he's taken.
I think it's been 5 or 6 years now.
Derek
Sherrod,
if you want to name drop.
And that one, one you can't even put that draft pick really on Ted. I mean, that was injury driven. Yeah. I mean, you can't foresee that kind of stuff coming. Derek Sherrod could have been a fantastic right tackle for us. Who knows? We have no idea. That's stuff like that happens, and you can't blame a GM for that. That's just unfortunate.
Wrong.
So obviously Ted knows that the focus should be on defense, and the fact that he has been unwilling to make a change at the coordinator position is mind-boggling to me. So I don't know who's more to blame. It comes tough, down man. To more. But if I'm a fan looking at this, which I am a fan looking at this. If I'm going to make a change first, you make a change at the coordinator position first. You bring in a new guy, and you see what you can do with these guys. You got guys like Demarius Randall, who you got to believe he was better his rookie season than this year. Maybe injuries were an issue. I don't know. Yeah. Sometimes he just looked lost. So I don't know. I really don't know when it comes to a guy like him. But you got to make a change at the coordinator position first. If it doesn't work, then you move to the GM. I don't think in this position that Thompson should be fired before Dom. I think Capers got to go before Dom. It doesn't sound like he will this season. Maybe it all changes next season. I'm not optimistic about it, but again, we have 12, so I'm always optimistic. But
I'm gonna say something that might be a little bold, might be a little bit of a hot take, but I firmly believe that if we had Wade Phillips as our defensive coordinator, who we should have hired a few years back instead of keeping Dom, or even Jim Schwartz as our defensive coordinator, who we should have hired and let Dom go, I'd have taken either one of those. If we have either one of those guys at defensive coordinator, I firmly believe that right now we're not talking about bringing in new guys. We're talking about how we're going to play against the Patriots in the Super Bowl.
I don't
I feel very strongly about this.
And to go along with that, though, I mean, that was the situation a couple years ago when you had a guy like Phillips that was available to hire. This year, you can't name that guy. You'd have
Rex Ryan, Mike Nolan.
Mike Nolan's
you really
coming
gonna
back, yeah.
Two guys have been named.
Okay, I'm not talking about ahead of Capers. That's fine. I can believe that. Would you? This isn't the same situation though as when a Wade Phillips is available, or do you think it is?
Well, technically, Wade Phillips was available, but we made it too far in the playoffs to hire him. The Rams hired him away because he left, so he got hired away by the Rams. But we missed out on him because we're still playing.
A big personality like Rex Ryan that would give these young players a whole lot of swagger, and they would hit harder, they would run harder. I think he would.
But even then, I mean, to Jordan's point on that, I mean, that's like Rex Ryan would be kind of awesome, but he's lost a little bit of his shine over the past few years. His scheme seems to be kind of figured out.
His defensives have still been very good.
They haven't. They've been bad. They've been real bad. And you can put some of that on Rob. You can put some of that on his brother. But at the same time, there's a belief in the league that the scheme's been figured out. Now, whether or not you can say that it's because he's a head coach and he wasn't able to focus on the defense, so you put him on the defensive side and he's able to readjust, like, that's fine. But like Jordan's saying, like, Wade Phillips was an obvious candidate. Rex Ryan, right now, not an obvious candidate. I mean, there are guys out there. There's not the guy that Wade Phillips was for us.
Knowing Ted Thompson, though, there's probably some linebackers coach or secondary coach in Houston or Pittsburgh or something like that that could totally step in right now and be like that next up-and-comer defensive coordinator.
If we're being real, if we're going to keep it 100, like the kids say, if Capers is gone, there's a 99% chance that Joe Witt is the defensive coordinator. Which, like, that seems like what
that doesn't make any sense at all, though. I hear you, and you're right. But it doesn't.
We're keeping Dom Capers. That also does not.
It doesn't. It doesn't, and it's infuriating because if you haven't read the article that I mentioned earlier, it's all about how there's a complete lack of accountability for what's going on. This is 5 years of underachieving defense, and defense completely letting us down come playoff time every single year. I mean. So one stat was mentioned how 3 times in the playoffs alone, Dom Capers' defenses have allowed 44 points or more. And that regular season, postseason, that's never happened to the Patriots with Tom Brady in charge. But in those games, the Packers have scored 21 points. That should be enough to at least make it a close game in an NFC Championship game, right? In another one, they allowed 45. They scored 31. If you score 31 in a playoff game, that should be a win. And then, of course, the huge one, allowing 51 points the year before we won the Super Bowl. We scored 45 points in a playoff game and lost. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't understand how he gets away with this every year, being the reason, like, not the reason, but a big reason that we're out of the playoffs before a Super Bowl, being Dom Capers. And it's just, it's okay because he's a great coach. Stop telling me he's a great coach and let me see some great coaching.
And technically, the defense only gave up 45 in that Arizona game. That was the fumble, the strip sack was run back.
Fine, they gave up 45 points then, but we still scored 45 points and lost.
It was all because of that bum quarterback Rodgers fumbling the ball. Am I right?
Yeah, it's always his fault, right? I mean, 45 points in a playoff game, you lose.
Brett Hundley.
But I mean, guys, as long as we are like on this topic, right? I mean, we're talking about potential, defensive coordinator replacements, but I want to go back to the question that we had before, whether it's a Ted Thompson or a Dom Capers thing, and it kind of brought to my attention where you guys all brought up the same name in Demarius Randall, and I remember hearing a comment that he made to the press where he feels like he's in the same boat as Devontae Adams, where Devontae Adams in his second year dealt with injuries, and then third year, look at where Devontae is at. Like, do you guys have that same level of confidence in Demarius Randall that you do in Devontae Adams? Like, have you seen enough from Demarius Randall to be like, okay, this is a guy that can be a top tier cornerback in the NFL?
Man, I mean, if you're asking me, I love Demarius Randall. Like, I had no faith in Devontae Adams. I've got a ton of faith in Randall. And, like, the thing with cornerbacks, like, rookie cornerbacks traditionally struggle more than just about any other high drafted position. If you start a rookie corner, they're going to be bad. Him and Rollins were both great, and then they weren't good, and it's partially due to injuries. Like, I think they're going to be good. I have way higher confidence in Randall rebounding and having a great year next year than I ever did with Devontae Adams doing what Devontae Adams
Here's my
did.
counter to that. Is that Randall and Rollins being cornerbacks, it's on them to go and do their job solely. With Adams, you're kind of you can get put back on track based on the offensive plan and the fact, again, that you have the greatest quarterback in the league throwing him the ball. That is not the case with Randall and Rollins. I'm not as optimistic about that they can come back and rebound. If it is because of injury, then that's fair. And they come back and they're 100% healthy and show more what they did their rookie year, then great. I'm not as optimistic about that. I really am not. I think for me, secondary, I mean, Brian's talked about this before. He's talked about the need for the front seven and getting pressure. I don't disagree with that, but we need a lockdown corner, in my opinion. And Randall, I don't think, even if Randall improves, he's not locked down. Like Shields was more locked down.
I think he is.
You think he is?
He is.
See,
I think Randall's
I
locked down.
disagreed with Jordan until the very end when he said we need a lockdown cornerback. Because here's the thing, it's not just injuries that hampered Devontae Adams. It was not just injuries that hampered Demarius Randall. It's the fact that they were thrust into positions that they were not ready for. Devontae Adams was not ready to be a number one receiver. He's probably never going to be a number one receiver, but this year as a number two, he was fantastic. Yes. 3 yards shy of 1,000 yards, and just tons of touchdowns. He was fantastic this year when he didn't have to be the number one guy. When he had to be, he totally failed, okay? But that just shows that it's not a problem. It's just he can't be the number one guy. With Demarius Randall, I don't see him being, an elite cornerback where you can expect him to go shut down the opponent's number one every week. I don't want to see him up against Des Bryant or Julio Jones or Antonio Brown. But being that number two guy, or better yet, being the slot guy, I think he has a really bright future ahead of him. We just have to get that number one, that kind of shadow, that lockdown guy, and allow whoever the defensive coordinator is to use Demarius Randall more to his strengths. Next year, assuming he doesn't have to be that number one guy, he doesn't have to be the guy that the secondary turns to, I see him turning it around and real quick and going back to kind of last year where he could play guys that were more to his current skill level and guys where he could, jump those routes and feel confident about doing that, up those interceptions again. And yeah, I think he can be a really good number two, number three cornerback.
I mean, if we're talking about lockdown in a Dom Capers defense, first of all, that doesn't exist. Like, that's never going to happen. He's never going to have that guy. He's always going to mix it up. You're always going to have a lot of zone. To me, that's why I have a little more faith in Randall. Is I know he's got the coverage skills. Jordan mentioned he looks lost. When he looks lost is when he has to fall back in zone. It's like he doesn't know his assignment.
Complex Dom Capers zone. It ruins everything.
You get him another year. You have him another year in that system. He's got the coverage skills. He's got the ball skills. We know that. All he struggles with, the main thing he struggles with is that zone. You get him healthy next year. It's another year on that defense. I think Randall's going to be really, really good. I think he could excel in, say, like the Joker type role that Woodson did. He's a really smart guy, very instinctive. But I think he can be a number one corner. And I think one more year in this defense. I think just this past year was a big learning experience. I think he's going to shock a lot of people next year. I have nothing but great things to say about Randall. I think he's going to be very,
high
very
praise
good
throwing the Woodson comparison out there.
I'm not saying he's going to be Woodson. I'm saying as far as a guy that has the quickness and some of he's got quickness, he's got intelligence, he's got his instincts are great. He's obviously not Charles Woodson, but if you're going to stick a guy in that role to kind of mix it up,
Charles Woodson though.
Well, and he was drafted, he was a safety. He was drafted to kind of be a hybrid guy. I mean, you can stick him in the box and I think he'd be dynamite, but I also think he'd be on the outside. Like he could be, that's kind of what I thought Hyde was going to be this year. And then it didn't quite work out, but I think Randall's got the intelligence and instincts to be a guy you can kind of put anywhere. And maybe I'm a little too high on him, but I think he's going to shock a lot of people next year.
To stick up for Micah Hyde, he was Charles Woodson in that Dallas game.
He was very good.
He was very good. Fantastic in that Dallas game. That was Charles Woodson-esque.
These are words that I never thought that I would ever mention, but I would tend to agree with Jordan as to what he said. I do not see the potential that you guys are seeing in Demarius Randall.
Look harder.
I'll even go a step further in saying that I do not see that in Quentin Rollins. Like I'm seeing two very underachieving cornerbacks. Yes, they've had injuries, but at the same time, when they're out on the field, like they have been absolutely torched from the moment
watch
they've been
the
out there.
film from last year, though. The talent is there. They just had really bad years. The talent is there.
I remember the Miami Dolphins game vividly, where Demarius Randall had that play on the goal line and got in front of the pass, knocked it down, and it pretty much won the game in Miami for us. And I mean, I see that, and I'm like, I want to believe in a guy like Demarius Randall, but at the same time, this year, just like it, I don't know. I'm gonna agree with Jordan on this right now, and I hope and pray that those two guys prove me wrong. And while we're getting into some heated discussions, Jordan, do we have Twitter questions to get as heated about?
All right, let's go to the audience, the fans of our podcast. In particular, Brian Avilas, our friend, our resident Bear fan of the podcast. He has a couple questions for us this week. We've kind of talked about this to a point. In fact, we've just been talking about this. He replied on Twitter saying, "So it seems time to rebuild the defense." Rebuild, probably not, but anyway, he says, "I want to hear everyone's opinion on what needs to be done and what your strategy is." So maybe we can change this question up, assuming there's no change, which is a pretty safe assumption probably right now, that we have Capers, that we have Thompson. What is the thing we want most for this defense right now?
Veterans. If I'm Ted Thompson, I go out and I sign 3 free agents, and it's a veteran on each level. It's a veteran defensive lineman, it's a veteran linebacker, whether that be inside or out, and it's a veteran cornerback. Just get some leadership, get guys that can come in and grasp this system and actually run it so that the kids can focus on playing instead of running a defense.
You know, Brian Avila said everyone, so I mean, I guess that includes me, but I guess Brian just put it perfectly, so that I don't even have to say anything. So Brian, I feel like you said everything I wanted to say. So that's it for me.
I think you just got to get talent in spots. I mean, we've talked about the secondary. We talked about the pass rush. Whether that's through free agency or if you think a guy like Dean Lowry or Kyler Fackrell or something is going to come through next year, I think you're going to have to supplement free agency. And again, looking at this list, I mean, he's not going to be cheap, but I mean, Chandler Jones, a guy like Chandler Jones could be huge for this team. AJ Bouye could be huge. Like, they're going to cost money, but you also have guys like Sam Shields, who may never play again, and Clay Matthews, who you could cut. So I think cutting a couple guys, a couple of the big money guys that aren't going to leave a whole lot of dead money in your cap, grabbing 1 or 2 free agents, hoping some of your young guys develop, and then grabbing some guys in the draft, like that's again, they've got the talent. They need a couple veterans and maybe a couple pieces. A pass rush would be huge. You can get a couple guys, again, either developed or free agent that can pass rush. That'd be massive. I mean, that's what they need to do. They need to bolster a couple positions. Free agency would be good for that. I'd love to see them use that. I think that's what they're going to need to do.
Yeah, for me, you even mentioned Kyler Fackrell. That was the guy I was going to bring up. Is, he had a pretty ineffective rookie season. I mean, for being a 3rd round pick, you'd expect a little bit more out of a guy for being a 3rd round pick. He's an older player. That was what you drafted him for, was being an edge rusher, was making a pass rush, and he just didn't get on the field a lot, and that's a bit of an issue. If he comes out and plays a lot better this next season, well, then maybe we're not even talking as much about this defense again, because while I would love to see nothing more than a lockdown corner be signed, it does start with a pass rush. If you can make a quarterback uncomfortable back there, that does change everything. When a quarterback can just sit back there, a la Matt Ryan 5 days ago, then it's easy pickings against pretty much any defense. I mean, if you have a good quarterback, regardless of the talent of secondary, I mean, Rodgers could torch a good secondary even with, if there's no pass rush, Rodgers can torch anybody. And Matt Ryan, he's an MVP candidate this year. He's playing fantastic football. If we're playing those guys, and those are the guys we do play in the playoffs, the games that really matter for the Packers, that's what's got to happen. We got to make it tough for these dudes. We didn't really do it with Prescott as much, but we still kind of got away with it in a way. But it's something that's obviously got to be addressed. So you talk about pass rush. Hopefully these guys that we drafted, guys like Kenny Clark, who started coming on at certain points in the season, Kyler Fackrell, guys that we've drafted. I mean, you talk about, again, young guys that are going to be a year older in this system. They need to produce. They need to show they are worthy of the relatively high draft pick that they were given. So for me in free agency, go and get a cornerback. That's what I would say is get somebody to bolster the secondary, a veteran leader in the secondary that's not a safety, because we already have that. It's on the edges. We need veteran leadership there. If Demarius Randall's your second best cornerback and Rollins your third, and we bring in another guy, then I feel fine. I really do. I really feel fine if all those guys are truly healthy. But you're talking draft level or at the draft, more pass rush. We got to have that. You got to believe that Peppers is not here. Matthews, he's probably, I imagine that Matthews will still be around. I don't know in what role. I imagine he'll still be here, but I think that's got to be a focus of the team as well. All right. That was the first question. So second question, and I actually just brought him up. This is also from Brian Avilas. You can find him on Twitter at BrianBBLL148. Is Clay Matthews done, or was it just an issue with injuries this season? Done.
I mean, not done, but I mean, I think his days of being an impact pass rusher are over. I think he may, if you're lucky, give you 3 plays. But I think more, I think the guy that we have come to know and love and expect to show up every week, I think that guy's gone. I honestly think you get more out of him from the inside linebacker position at this point, but even then, his coverage skills aren't great. For the money he's getting, he's not worth it. I think we've seen the last of the great Clay Matthews we were accustomed to seeing.
I think we've even seen the last of the good Clay Matthews. I mean, you can talk about the injuries all you want, but that shoulder injury came about halfway through the year, and he was really bad before that. Even playing at inside linebacker, you could describe him as solid, but right now I wouldn't give him a whole lot of playing time over Jake Ryan or Joe Thomas, let alone if Blake Martinez shows any improvement next year. I don't see a spot for him. Maybe some third down pass rushing a little bit, preferably from the inside, because he seems more able to do that from there at this point, but if Clay Matthews is starting on this defense next year, we're probably having the same conversation a year from now. It's just he's not good enough to be starting on a good defense.
Yeah, for me though, I don't disagree with you guys. I feel like the loyalty that they give to some of these guys, you can even look at Julius Peppers as Exhibit A this season. There are times it's easier to criticize Clay because Peppers at times would come up with a big sack just out of nowhere. He'd be completely ineffective for the whole game, and then in a big moment he'd come up with a sack. You're like, oh, Peppers, nice play. I mean, which is you can't just throw that away. I mean, those are valuable plays.
Clay
for your
did the
defense.
same thing, just less often.
He had the strip sack in the Giants game where he ran down the field and collected it.
But he did nothing else that entire game.
And
nothing else.
The game was pretty much in hand already at that point too.
Right.
So it's just what's interesting about that is that Peppers is 36, 37 years old. Clay Matthews is only 30.
I would take Julius Peppers again next year over Clay Matthews.
See, I would not. No. I would tend to think that if it's it's a shoulder injury we knew about. The speed issue with Clay is I've never seen the dude move so slow. I mean, there are times when he was chasing Brock
so slow.
Brock Osweiler in the game against Houston in Lambeau. and he could not run Brock Osweiler. Man, he could chase down Russell Wilson in his prime. It's.
Yeah.
I can't.
Saw him chase down Mike Vick in that Super Bowl year.
That's so true.
Yeah.
Yes,
He can't chase down Brock anymore. He's done.
No, and here's the thing. His injury that was stated was a shoulder injury. It has nothing to do with his lower body and his speed.
I know.
Like, a shoulder might keep you from pumping your arms when you're running, so it slows you down a little bit. But to slow you down from chasing down Mike Vick to not chasing down Brock Osweiler, that's bad.
He was
would he win a foot race against
motion.
the Manning brothers right now? I don't even know.
Well, not based on this, but that's the thing though. Like it's a shoulder injury knew about. I gotta believe there was something else there. I mean, the dude's only 30 years old. He's only 30 years old.
Unless he had a leg amputated, there's no reason for him to move that slow.
I don't.
You want to know? You want to know?
It's strange to me.
You want to know who was 30 years old when he left Green Bay? Aaron Campman. Aaron Campman was 30 years old when the Packers were like, all right, we're done with you. I know I just wanted to drop Aaron Campman in on this conversation because I wanted to say his name. But it's one of those things where, I mean, I think Clay has just he has not had
the difference
more than
there is
13...
that Aaron Campman had an expiring contract and Clay doesn't. Clay is expiring next year, and I wouldn't be surprised.
True. And it was also a switch from the 4-3 to the 3-4.
Yeah, and he was coming off just coming off an ACL injury.
All right, guys. All right, make me look like an idiot.
Anytime, buddy.
Anytime.
But
anytime.
The bottom line is Clay's most sacks in the season is 13.5. And I mean, when you look at statistically where everyone else is in the league, I mean, we're talking the league leader has about 19. Clay has shown ability to get to the quarterback throughout his career, but at the same time, has he ever really been extremely elite at his position? I don't know if he can say that.
Well, he had that defensive player of the year, and he was definitely elite that year. But I mean, the rest of his career, you'd say he was very good, and that's about as far as you can go.
Well, I mean, you can't just count sacks either. He caused a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
I mean, he was always in the backfield, smart guy. I don't know, would be a little over aggressive at times, but I don't really want to say that Matthews was elite for only one season.
No.
Matthews was massive for us. He was best player on some of the some great defenses for a while. So I mean, I'm not saying that what he did in the past was bad, but that player's gone.
My last point on this is that I'm more high on Matthews jumping more to an impact role than I am about Demarius Randall. Truthfully, I am.
How dare you? I'll fight you in the streets with my
wow.
It's a confidence thing.
We're talking about a young dude with athleticism and potential who has shown playmaking ability versus a guy who hasn't been a playmaker in 3 years. Can't play his position anymore.
Claymaker. He hasn't been a
playmaker
in a few years.
Yes, thank you. And he's lost
Randall,
3 steps on his speed, man.
If Randall can, again, it's not as much. I shouldn't say not as much. It's a health issue, obviously, with Randall, but it's also a confidence issue. With Matthews, there's obviously no shortage of confidence. I can't believe with that guy. So if it's a matter of just getting 100% healthy, I think the uphill battle is much more of a battle for a guy like Randall based on the season that he's had, and Rollins too, than a Clay Matthews. That's truly what I think. And I think it's more important.
Confidence doesn't mean a whole lot if you can't make it to the place that you're confident you'll make it to.
Nah, I see what Jordan's saying though. It's if it truly was Clay's health, then he'll bounce. Then we may see a bounce back.
Point
season.
But he wasn't making plays those 2 years at inside linebacker really either, and he was healthy. He played all 16 games in those seasons. And he wasn't a playmaker then.
I don't know.
So
I don't know if I go that far.
Injury,
he was pretty effective as an inside linebacker when we put him there.
He was solid. He wasn't a playmaker though.
That's what I'm talking about.
But he was playing out of position. You're not going to get
I would take solid for Clay Matthews. I mean, you can't describe Demarius Randall as solid. this, you know,
I don't think Clay Matthews can even be solid anymore, though. He's too slow to be solid.
Again, though, if that's an injury thing, then you can see him getting a step back. The dude's not 35; he's only 30. So that's why, again, I have optimism that Clay can get back to being a marginally impact player. He's not a superstar. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying he can be an impactful player for this defense. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. All right. Good stuff, guys. This is great. I'm having fun. All right. We got one more. We got one more question. This comes from our beloved producer, Josh Shack. You can find him on Twitter at Armand_Hammers. He said,
Jay Sizzle.
That's right. That's right. His question is, if you were in a falling elevator and jumped right before it hit bottom, would Capers still be a good fit for this team?
Look, just the knowledge that Capers is more than likely going to be back next year. If I'm in a falling elevator, I'm not even going to try to time it. I'm just going to say that fate has told me that it's time. That's it.
That's fair.
That's it. I'm really depressed about the fact that he's more than likely going to be back.
I mean, if Josh wants all of our opinions on this, then I would have to say that I tend to agree with Brian again. So, Dusty, if you have anything to say, go ahead.
Nah, it's the same thing. I mean, I don't have confidence. I don't have confidence in Capers anymore, but I'm also past being upset about it because, I don't know, I tried to learn a very long time ago that it's hard. Just try not to get upset about things that you have no control over, and I've got no control over this situation. It's frustrating that they keep doing this, but man, as long as they keep doing it, I'm not going to hope for change, or I will hope for change, but I just won't expect it. So, yeah, I mean, I think he's a bad fit for this team, especially right now. But man, like I think I'm going to be upset about it anymore for like one day, just whenever they lose in the playoffs, and after that, I'll be like, well, this is who they are, and they still made it this far. So it's frustrating, but it is what it is at this point.
Bad fit for the team, even worse fit for Ted Thompson.
Guys, I could get real wonky about the fact that if you're in a falling elevator and jumped right before it hit the bottom, that it wouldn't matter. It wouldn't matter. You'd still probably perish.
Yes, it would.
It would not. It would not matter.
Certainly sounds like a nerd.
Leave it up to Jordan. Leave it up to Jordan to plug in.
Like I said,
to plug in the Pythagorean theorem and try and put a mathematical equation to this.
It's not the Pythagorean. No.
Really try and dive into what Josh's question was all about.
It's really more a physics thing, but not.
Oh my gosh, Jordan.
Pythagorean.
So moving on to our final thoughts segments. Man. Anything to get Jordan to freaking shut up right now, that would be great. So, I mean, guys, it's time. It is time for the final thoughts. All right. I have deemed it that time as the host.
All right.
To call
it's probably about
the
that
time for final thoughts. And Manoshevitz, Brian, give it to us. What are your final thoughts this week?
Dude, starting off with the dumbest thing I saw on social media this week. That's my new thing. This is kind of cheating because it was more of an interview and an article, but I saw it on social media first, so I'm going to count it. Grady Jarrett of the Atlanta Falcons complaining about the Packers getting away with a lot of holding calls. So here's my 3 problems with that. 1, there's holding on like every single play in every NFL game. Always, okay? And you can't call it on everyone, okay? 2, they don't get away with anything more than other people, and I'm not going to push this point because I'm not going to go watch the film of every single game of every single team and talk about who gets away with what more often. I don't have that kind of time, and I would think that Grady Jarrett doesn't either. 3, dude, you just won the NFC Championship game. You're going to Houston to play in a Super Bowl against the New England Patriots. Why are you sitting there complaining in an interview about the team you just beat the crap out of getting away with holding calls? I'm thinking back, I mean, as a fan, not even a player, I'm thinking back to that game. We beat the Bears, we get into the Super Bowl. I didn't have anything negative to say about the Bears in that game. Because I didn't care. They weren't an issue anymore. They were gone. They were in the past. I was thinking Super Bowl the whole time. Why is he in an interview talking about how the team that he just beat the crap out of got away with holding calls? It's asinine. It's stupid. It's petty. It's annoying. Makes no sense. Yeah, having said that, moving on. We'll just wrap things up. As John mentioned before, we're going to be releasing some mini episodes and things like that will only be available on our feed, so make sure you click subscribe to Pack to the Future on iTunes, Android, Stitcher. We're on all the big ones, so whatever podcasting app you're using, we're on it. So search Pack to the Future and subscribe to that for a whole lot of off-season content. We're going to be bringing it every week, hopefully every month for sure. Lots of stuff in the off season, so stay tuned. You can find me on Twitter at PTTF_Brian. You can find us at PTTF_podcast.
As Brian just described to you guys, I did give you a list of specific instructions as to what to do actually when you get
follow
to
them blindly
the subscription stage. So follow them with great haste and diligence. Dusty, please, your final thoughts, please, right now.
I've got 3. So, I like to look at the cheap tickets for the upcoming week. And as we all know, the only game this upcoming week is the Pro Bowl. So I looked at the cheap tickets for the Pro Bowl. So this is kind of a weird little oddity. So they didn't have them listed on ESPN, which is where I normally go, which I think is through Ticketmaster. So I went through StubHub. You can get a Pro Bowl ticket for $94, which is like $90 too much to go to Orlando to go see the Pro Bowl. But here's the truly weird thing. So the Pro Bowl is $94. A Pro Bowl parking pass is $240. $240 to park. Like,
what are they doing? Are they parking you on Dumbo the ride? I don't know.
Like, I think
Disney World, or what the frick?
I think if you buy the ticket, like the parking ticket, I think you can actually play on the team. Like, I assume that's what it is. So maybe $240 isn't that bad. Like, I don't know, but I thought that was odd that it was just so much larger than the ticket itself. So that's fun. So guys, don't go to Orlando to go see the Pro Bowl. That game is rubbish. Just pure garbage. So I love football, and I refuse to watch that game because it's terrible, awful. Like, every year I think, I'm going to watch some of this, and then I never do because it's terrible.
So Dusty, what you're saying is that for the cost of a parking ticket to the Pro Bowl, you can go to 3 playoff Chiefs games?
Yep.
Yeah, that's true. That's accurate. That's exactly what you can do, John. Exactly what I'm saying. Second final thought. Man, we were talking earlier about I can't remember if it was on the show or before the show, about Taco Wallace. And Taco Wallace is like one of my favorite names of all time. And he was with the Packers for like 2 weeks, I think back in 2005. So here's a fun little thing. So my first ever Packers game was actually in Cincinnati. It was the Favre 5 interception game, where as Favre was dropping back to throw the ball in the final seconds for the tying touchdown, a guy ran on the field and stole the ball from his hand. That was my first ever NFL game. And the fun thing about that, so Taco Wallace dressed for that game, as well as Willie Quinney. Now, Willie Quinney is someone a lot of people probably don't know. You guys ever heard of Willie Quinney?
I have not.
Okay, so I used to play Madden against my brother a lot, and my youngest brother, and we hated running the ball, so we just had to throw all the time, and then we got sick of playing with NFL teams. So Madden at the time, you could actually pick whatever the European League. What was the name of that one?
NFL Europe. Yeah.
NFL Europe. You pick NFL Europe teams, and we had to throw every single time. And I had I'm blanking on who my quarterback was, but Willie Quinney was on that team. I'd never heard of him, but that dude was just lighting up. He went for like 500 yards in that game, 8 touchdowns, just bonkers. And he was with the Packers for that game with Taco Wallace. Maybe my favorite ever Green Bay wide receiver duo that never actually sniffed the field. So that was fun. That was my first ever NFL game. I got to see those two just titans together. It was very exciting. My last final thought. So after Packer season ends, it's always very sad. I usually take a day or two to have to collect myself. I've gotten better lately. But one of the ways I've coped, I think I talked about this last year, is I go home after a game and I watch just at least one violent movie, usually an action movie or a horror movie or something. Usually I go with, say, like The Raid or Mad Max or Dread. Like, Dread was a real favorite. This year I actually went doubleheader. I went John Wick, which I don't know if you guys have seen John Wick yet, but you got, like, the second one's coming out. I told you a while ago to watch it.
I remember
so watch
this.
John Wick.
No, Dusty.
Yeah.
Truthfully, I've seen the commercials for John Wick 2, and I'm like, I haven't seen John Wick 1, but a guy I know, and it's you, Dusty, has said that John Wick 1 was was really good.
Yeah, watch John Wick 1 because it helped me get over this loss. I did John Wick and then the Evil Dead remake, and just between those two, you know, it got the violence, it got the rage out of me, so that was exciting. So I mean, what you take from this is watch John Wick, guys. Just watch John Wick. The second one's coming out soon, but everything ends in a headshot. Like, it's awesome. He just shoots everyone in the head, guys. It's brilliant, brilliant piece of cinema. So those are my final thoughts. You can find me on Twitter at Dusty Evely.
Dusty has gotten to a point where every time I see Keanu Reeves' face, I just think of you.
Good. That's what I'm working for.
I can't say that I hate that. So
yeah, I appreciate it, man.
And the other great thing that you did too is you referenced NFL Europe, which our producer Josh has. I think right now he has 2 hats.
Yep.
From NFL Europe teams. And
the Rheingeist? You got the Rheingeist on there?
Barcelona Dragons is
Fire. Rhine Fire was my team.
Nice. He has Barcelona Dragons and one other, which just Josh, just tweet us in and tell us what the other one is, and we'll go from there. But very good reference on NFL Europe. And Jordan,
thank you.
I'm gonna wait on yours because I'm gonna give mine, and then I'm gonna let you close out the show because this is my show and I get to do whatever I want.
That was a tease. That was a tease.
That was pretty bad.
It was a tease.
That was so terrible. That I'm gonna let Jordan go. So go ahead, Jordan.
No, John, please. No, I'll go. All right. You guys bring up NFL Europe. I mean, you're talking about one of the great NFL Europe stars played for the Green Bay Packers. He was actually a backup quarterback for the Packers. You guys should know who I'm talking about. John, not Seneca Wallace. Going back even early 2000s. We're talking Craig Nall.
Keely Smith.
Craig Nall.
Craig Nall.
I was a big believer in Craig Nall.
Not only a great NFL Europe player, he was all NFL Europe 2003 for the Scottish Claymores.
Ooh, man, that's a good team there.
Bringing you some
beat out Chad Hutchinson.
Bringing some NFL Europe.
Nice.
R.I.P.
Nice.
Knowledge to you all on this podcast. So, anyways, so a couple final thoughts. First of all, I actually just today I've been living in Virginia for about a year and a half. I lived in Ohio back when I went to college and a few years after college. So I get a letter in the mail today from the Ohio Department of Taxation, and it turns out that I overpaid on my taxes and I'm going to get some more money back. So first final thought is I'm getting some money back, guys. I am pretty stoked about that.
Sounds like a scam.
That's awesome, Jordan.
I love
Where
it.
are we going?
Thank you, Ohio. You've served me well once again.
We're going to Toronto. Jordan, you're paying for my plane ticket. You're gonna pay for my plane ticket to the 6th?
We're driving there. We're driving there, John.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right.
Sorry. So
I feel you on that.
okay. Also, second final thought is Dusty. You're throwing some major shade at the Pro Bowl. Me personally, I am.
I'd say it's true.
I couldn't be more excited to see guys like local favorites like Joe Thomas just explode off the line and have a good conversation with Everson Griffin, on the line.
I knew I didn't.
While this happens, Andy Dalton is throwing darts to Jarvis Landry over the middle. I can't wait. I can't wait for the Pro Bowl. It's gonna.
Andy Dalton has never thrown a dart.
I mean, we're talking about this is supposed to be the best players in the NFL, and I'm supposed to tune in to watch Andy Dalton.
Andy Dalton's had some good moments in the NFL, Brian.
Come on, man.
Statistically,
best
Andy
players
Dalton
in the league, man.
You guys want to
sit? I'm supposed to watch Andy Dalton.
Very good.
I'm just going to show you. I'm looking up some of the dudes that are actually playing in the Pro Bowl right now. to let you guys know, the long snapper for the NFC, Jake McQuaid for the Rams, had a great season. Looking forward to watching him.
That's good to know.
That's going to be good.
It's good to know.
Kick returner for the AFC, Peyton Hillis.
Kick returner for the AFC.
That I would watch.
Let's see. Kick returner is actually Tyreek Hill. And then DJ Alexander. There's a lot of Chiefs in the Pro Bowl, that's also...
So there's no Peyton
There's
Hillis.
also a lot of Buffalo Bills in the Pro Bowl. Explain that to me. I don't know.
The Pro Bowl is a broken crapshoot.
You have a
JP Osmond.
So, Jordan, where can we find you on Twitter? Is it at JGPack41? Okay, great.
Great. Moving on.
Yes, that is
great. My final thought is
that is where you can find me on Twitter. Thank you,
Duly
guys.
noted.
This has been a great podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Oh, sorry, John. Go ahead.
My final thought is, as much as I'd love to hear Jordan ramble on about which Chiefs made the Pro Bowl, I would just like
Willie
to
Quinney
say
for like 2 minutes. That's way worse than Jordan.
I do a lot of things way worse than Jordan. Let's just be honest about that. But I don't want to fully mention that. But my one final thought that I have for you guys is that I just feel I guess blessed to have been brought on to this podcast to just kind of bring some laughs and enjoyment to you guys. Hopefully we have as a collective. I've just had so much fun doing this podcast for this year so far, and we've shared some great moments. We've shared some very dull moments, very rarely. But no, I just absolutely love just being part of this podcast, and I appreciate you guys for bringing me onto this thing and kind of sticking up, putting up with my craziness. But no, that's pretty much where my final thought takes me. And now that the Packers season has finally come to an end, I just want to officially thank you guys for allowing me to be part of this podcast. And that's pretty much it. So, guys, I am on Twitter at John Jameson. Follow me if you wish. Other than that, don't feel like because the season is over that we are just done giving you guys Packers coverage, because that is just not the truth, okay? We are still dedicated to the green and gold, and we will always bring you the best coverage you could ever ask for. Look for our mini-series. Like I said, go find it on iTunes. Subscribe to us on iTunes and Stitcher, any site like that. And we'll still be kicking out articles and all the good stuff that you guys could ever want and ask for and pray for and hope for. Everything that you want, Packers, we have it. So just do it already, okay? And yeah, I'm sorry that the Packers season came to an end, but we, as Back to the Future, have not. Tune in for more. God bless. Goodbye.